Kia ora. Before I started talking about the JonBenet Ramsey case, I also said I'd probably want to make a little series about Darlie Routier and the attack on her and the death of her two young sons. And then I made my JonBenet series and wasn't sure about continuing with Darlie's case discussions because the reason why I support Darlie, well, I know people are just going to laugh me off YouTube, okay, but you know, what's new? So I thought perhaps I could just forge ahead and just let you in on the reason why I started looking at the case in a certain way and thinking, you know what? Regardless of what is said about Darlie, regardless about some of the things that are a bit odd that are in the discovery, I feel as if she could be innocent. And I don't mean in cahoots with Dropkick Darren. I mean innocent. And this is what's going to get the negativity, okay? The reason why, all I had to do was look at one video and I just knew. And it was a woman's intuition type thing. And it comes back to the Malcolm Gladwell idea of blink. And the idea that, what am I looking at here? Something is connecting up here. What I'm saying is telling me she's innocent. What is it? Well, what it was watching the footage of Darlie and family members at the memorial for her sons. And one of her sons, it was the birthday, would have been their birthday. And the footage that was shown was just some very brief footage of the part where then they decided to have a celebration for this young child's birthday. And what, of course, wasn't shown in that footage was 2 hours of grieving, of memorial, you know. But then, of course, the press are all over the silly string scenario. And Darlie quickly became one of the most hated women in the world. When I looked at that footage, I immediately saw that Darlie, knowing the woman that she is, would never in a million years have appeared looking that way, sans brassiere, if she wasn't innocent. Because Darlie was a beautiful young woman who, when she moved on from Darren, and I believe they were talking about separation that very day, she would have no problem, even with 3 young children in tow, in finding suitors and in remarrying if she wished. It wasn't going to be a problem for young Darlie Routier. She's definitely the type of woman that is attractive to men, who has a bubbly, upbeat personality. She wouldn't have any trouble meeting someone. Whereas Darren, who had somehow managed to snag his high school sweetheart, seems like a bit of a dullard. Seems like a bit of a bore. And didn't really have the zing and the charisma that Darlie Routier has. And I look at Darlie Routier in the footage without her bra, and I see a woman that in any other circumstance other than she was innocent and had been brutally attacked and had lost two of her children, in any other circumstance, if she had anything to do with it at all, she would have been well put together. She would have been groomed. She would have been wearing a bra. She would have had makeup on. Yes, she may have been crying and this and that. She had crawled out of bed, pulled on whatever she found on the floor, her dirty singlet, her shorts, and just been helped out the door. You could tell. To me, this is just so clear that she is a broken, grieving woman who herself was attacked, nearly killed, 2 millimeters close to a major artery in her neck. 2 more millimeters. That's not very much. Now, I know this just seems, well, what a silly thing to base an idea of innocence on. I know that. But I truly believe the more I've looked at other evidence, it's just an intellectual argument for some, right? And you can actually argue it both ways. It's like most things. It's like being in a debating team, okay? The for or against. If you're clever enough, bright enough, if you know enough about general knowledge in certain topics or human nature or just have a gift of the gab, anybody can argue for either side and make viewers agree with anything pretty much, okay? And this is where people need to question anything themselves, anything and everything, and go and look at things yourself and make your own decisions. Everything else, unless it's, of course, even expert testimony, actually. I mean, just go in and make your own decisions about things, because never take anyone's word for anything. So, obviously, that includes mine as well on the Humanimal channel. But that really is just something that struck me so powerfully. I can't forget it. It just doesn't seem right to me with the way that Darlie Routier was in life. Glamorous and well presented, fun. She valued physical appearance. I don't care what you say about how you think that might be shallow or not. I think, she, after 3 children with this man, I don't think she was in love with Darren. And I think Darren damn well knew this. Darren himself has let the world know that he had planned on making other sort of fraudulent insurance claims. He put a large insurance policy out on Darlie. He had $5,000 ahead on the children. He was in fact $10,000 debt to somebody. And, he's admitted himself that he was hiring thugs to try and solve some of his problems. It's not really a reach to me to think that he might have thought Darlie was one of his problems. She was going to cost him a lot of money in divorce. Who is this sounding like? And maybe he could just start fresh if he had less dependence and less liability. I think he realised Darlie was over him. She'd grown up and grown out of him, and he wanted to solve his own problem. Darlie was a young mother, but I don't think for 1 minute that she was a bad mother. And I don't think she was a murderous mother. And I think she probably had some postpartum depression. This doesn't mean that she had postpartum psychosis. She could have felt very desperate at times. You can feel desperate at times and in certain moments want to take your own life but not actually do it and never consider killing your children. But Darren would have been well aware of Darlie's illness and mental health issues. Rather than maybe supporting her, he has used this to help keep her in prison. I don't care. It's lip service. What he gives is lip service when he's talking about how he supports her. It's just bullshit. He can say that because he's on the other side of the jail wall. And I don't believe that's the right way round. I really don't. I really think Darlie Routier was set up, and it's a miracle she lived. You can say, oh, but how could someone kill little boys, and how was she only attacked? Why wasn't she killed? Well, she's a grown woman. I believe I don't care what the story said about, was it the sun, was it this man on top of her that woke her up? I think it would be very easy for her to have some confusion about things for brief moments of the series of events. But she's woken up, and I think she has fought for her life. And this is how she's gotten her severe bruising, and it's how she's lived. Tiny children just out of toddlerhood can't do that. There's explanations for everything, from the blood on or under broken glass, blood in the sink, etc., etc. You can intelligently argue it either way, just depending on what side of the fence you're on and what story you want to tell. So, yeah, I just truly think that there's no way Darlie would have just rolled out of bed the way she was. She had barely, I doubt if she'd even washed her face. And I think even if she was truly in some sort of grief but guilty, oh no, Darlie would have been presenting herself like the attractive widow. Her vanity that you all, that people love to talk about and pick on her for. I'm a vain person, and I know what times in my life, I know what truly bad mental health does to you. You don't dress yourself, you don't brush your hair, you can't take care of your personal things like that. You don't get dressed properly, and I can imagine her just getting dressed. I can see how this has happened because you are incapable, and you just pull on your shorts from the floor, your t-shirts. This is to go to a memorial. How many memorials have you been to when you haven't tried to look presentable and nice, whether it's a close person to you, or you're there to support someone else, or it's some sort of public memorial? Do you just struggle to even brush your hair, your teeth, or put a bra on? No. If you are in the grips of deep grief and depression, do you struggle? Yes. And a woman like Darlie would have made something happen if she had anything to do with those kids. So that's just what I think. I am so super sus on Darren. I don't trust him as far as you could kick him. And there's this funny little link too to the McCann case and to the JonBenet Ramsey case, and one that I've spoken about recently. And it's just something queer. And it's like, I don't want to be illogical here. It's truly just things that I find interesting, okay? Because I understand that human beings, we struggle with the randomness of the world, okay? We struggle with trying to give meaning to this existence, because really our existence is quite meaningless. We are quite... we don't know if we're miraculous or not. The universe is infinite. It is, in fact, so infinite time and size-wise, I mean that every human being, every molecule in the universe is actually the core of the universe. So, of course, to ourselves, everything is so important, but we're really not. And we want to put meaning into things to make things matter. And I know I'm aware of this when I say things. I mean, this is just something that it's intriguing to me, maybe. It's just something because it grabs my mind, just like other signs and things grabs other people's minds. Darlie Routier had a Jaguar car at the time. So did John Mark Carr, who is part of basically the bullshit and jelly beans surrounding the JonBenét Ramsey murder, not death, murder. And in the McCann case, Christian Bruckner, this other red herring surrounding Madeleine McCann, he was driving a Jaguar car when he lived in Praia de Luz at the time of her disappearance. Now, something else about that, what was it? Oh, that's frustrating. Something about the Ramsey case that I just wanted to mention because it's been coming up a bit. I'll just pause the video. I can't remember who was talking about it, but it was someone maybe on some more recent videos about JonBenét Ramsey's case. And I think without realizing, they were jumping on and promoting a Ramsey fakery narrative, which is that they were being brought up, being that the grand jury wanted to indict them because neglect meant something like leaving the windows open, leaving, doors unlocked. This is not what the grand jury meant to indict for when they're talking about the Ramseys are guilty of neglect and, leading to her murder. It would more mean that they were guilty of being such backwards parents, such inattentive, selfish people, individually, to the point that the way they were bringing up JonBenét and Burke allowed for this weak family structure where anything could have been happening in their home, anything such as a child being abused, sexually assaulted. They mean neglect, as in just neglect for that child's very well-being, for that child's physical safety, state of mind within the family unit. It doesn't mean, they left the house unlocked and so therefore a burglar could come in. People break windows. People pick locks, okay? No jury is going to want to indict grieving parents. I mean, do you think Daniel Morecambe's parents are being indicted for neglect because they let their young son, he was only 12, he shouldn't have been going off to the shopping centre on his own? That's neglect. Let's indict them. Let's take them to trial. Fuck no. Okay? So if that is your reasoning, please examine everything else that is going on up here, because you're missing it. And what you're doing is also helping John Bennett Ramsey, okay? And he gets enough support from the people that buy his books, although not in the great droves that they buy other people's books. He gets enough support from MSM, from, television networks, okay? He gets enough support. He can tell whatever little story he likes in however many different ways he likes, as often as he likes, to whomever he likes, whenever he seems to want to, whenever he's got something to sell. Right now what he's selling is his son, John Andrew Ramsey. This is what's on sale now, is John Andrew Ramsey as the helm of this investigation, as the one that you listen to now, because John Ramsey's in his 70s. He might have had that little eyelid tuck on his hooded eyes, but, we don't know how long he's got on this earth before he passes over, feeling the dread. And so let's just sell John Andrew Ramsey. We've used Burke Ramsey to raise some funds, quite a few $1 million. Who says John Ramsey's had trouble with his career after the death of his young daughter? I mean, this is Entrepreneur of the Year, and isn't he showing his skills in fundraising? They have raised millions by putting Burke out there. And if the grand jury weren't sure if it was Patsy, if it was John, or if it was Burke who murdered John Benet Ramsey, indicting the parents for neglect is the way that they wanted to make sure that John Benet Ramsey got justice, because the neglect is that here is a household that is not a safe environment. It's not safe because if there's abuse from a parent to a child or a sibling to a child, that abuse has ended up in the death of a child, and she suffered to that point. This household wasn't a safe environment because the parental care was substandard. Here we have people who are so flocky knocky nihili pilification, bent on just fulfilling their own desires and wishes for the rest of their life, for whatever time they had on earth, not in giving their children a good solid foundation in life, knowing that, look, I'm probably going to pass away from cancer. This cancer will probably come back. The best I can do for my children is ensure that they have a solid foundation, okay, of persona, of self-esteem. No, let's just use this little muppet as my puppet. Let's not give a shit about toilet training or about what these children are doing when I'm not fulfilling my own wishes. So with John Benet, John might go on about, she was an amazing child. She was an amazing child because she took tap, she took singing, she took trombone, and she's just about to start rock climbing. Well, the only thing that doesn't fit into the pageantry was probably the rock climbing. Oh, but actually no, I think it did have to do with the pageantry, because Jean Benet was actually sometimes a little bit frightened of going on stage, even though she seems to, I mean, her little face when she's getting a crown put on her head, you can see the thrill and the pleasure, right? But she was anxious about performing sometimes. Maybe the rock climbing was all about getting her to face her fears so that she could better perform on stage for her stage mother, Patsy, okay? Everything that child was doing was about these pageants. Patsy Ramsey fulfilled her own dreams. She talks about, well, what are you talking about, these costumes? You know, these are just nothing. They're fun to do with the themes of the pageants that we were attending. No, because they are direct replicas of something that she wore as a young woman, not as a young girl. They are direct replicas. Okay, they are the showgirl costumes. The cowgirl costumes might have been a little different, but the showgirl costumes, the black and white, several other outfits that I've seen JonBenet photographed in are direct representations of what Patsy Ramsey wore in her Miss America contests. So it's what she wore to win Miss West Virginia, what she wore to compete in Miss America. She recreated onto her 5-6-year-old daughter. Okay, so that's plain as day to be making a little proxy. That reminded me of something else. Just pause again. It eludes me. But anyway, you know, here's a little girl that was trying to please her mother. And can you imagine the atmosphere in this home? These children would have been very young when Patsy was suffering her cancer. JonBenet, I think, was a very little. Burke was a young boy. And perhaps the attention was strongly on Burke until JonBenet came along. Patsy had cancer. And when she sort of came back to life, all her spotlight was on JonBenet. And what was Burke doing? Well, Burke was going to scouts. He was playing basketball. He was playing with neighbourhood friends and that sort of thing. I don't know, was Burke missing John Ramsey as much as JonBenet is said to have missed John Ramsey? John was hardly home. He was probably playing around, and no, I don't feel like that's gossip, because I do feel like there is evidence of at least one affair prior to this time in their life. You know, and Patsy was just so preoccupied. She's having more surgery, so she's having boob jobs, chin implants. She's turning 40. This is a momentous time for a woman, you know, and I think there was so much going on in that household. What sort of voice did these children really have? This is what is meant by neglect. The grand jury can see these records with things that aren't released to us, but JonBenet's school records, where she's going to the nurse every Monday, and they've seen the records. They've seen her go 32 times to a pediatrician. Okay, no, this is not normal. Okay, and 5 of those times were for vaginitis and issues to do with the urinary tract, which a young girl, no, should not be experiencing. Some young children are born, is it congenital, with issues. But if they're developing issues like that, there is very often a major problem in the home, in the lifestyle, in things that are happening to the child. You know, were these children really being cared for in such a way that meant that it wasn't a neglectful home? This is what the grand jury is driving at. It is zero to do with windows, doors, etc. Zero. What do you think about premeditation? How strategic do you have to be able to take a company from $150 million revenue to 5 years later, $1 billion revenue, outselling even more than Microsoft itself at the time. You probably have to be pretty bright. You probably have to be a strategist. You probably have to be 10 steps ahead of everybody else. That's how you take a company from $150 million turnover to $1 billion turnover. And that's how you become, in an area where there is a lot of forward-thinking corporations, that's how you become Entrepreneur of the Year. This doesn't happen because you just lucked upon, a great business idea, and I'm going to sell things on Amazon, and I bought them for 1 cent and I sold them for $1.10, and I sold 100,000 units. No, that's not being Entrepreneur of the Year in Boulder, Colorado. Okay? It's simply not. It takes a strategic mind. It takes someone that can plan many years ahead. You have a vision. So when do you think that window was open? Okay, in the summer. Is there a reason why this window was open? I mean, what the fuck is a C-level executive with as much status in the company as John Ramsey had, Lockheed? What is an executive of Lockheed doing having such an unsafe home? What sort of secrets were up in his office on the 3rd floor that they built on that home in 15th Street? What sort of things should have been kept safe? You know, this sort of executive, there are certain expectations. And, you know, John makes out that, they went into security, or they went over to, what is it? I'm not sure. So they went in a different direction and I wasn't needed. Well, you did all right out of the deal, Ramsey, but, you know, you're probably shafted because child neglect, child died in your home, in the home that you should have been making secure, not only for your young, vulnerable family, but because of the position you hold with this business, in this industry, in this sector, in this town, in this country. Okay? Is he that just stupid, disconnected, slap happy? What is the reason that he was just paying absolutely no attention in his home? And do you think that this might be what the grand jury wanted to mean about neglect? We have not seen anywhere near what is actually available as data. We feel like we might know a lot, but we don't have it all. And it's something to think about. Anyway, this has gone on way long enough. I will speak to you later.